So on the screen, you see the housekeeping. When you come in, your lines are muted. If you have a question, please ask it in the chat or in the Q&A, either one. If we need more information, we might ask you to unmute, but we'll get to that if we need to. Presentations will be emailed sometime during next week, and that takes care of that. I had mentioned that I was at the Arlington Summit Roadshow, and we have two coming up. We have one in Chicago in August, and then there's a new one that was just added in New York in October. So if you can go, I highly recommend it. Lots of good things to learn. And if you have some problems, they have an expert room, so you have somebody there who can help you one-on-one. All right, that's all I have. You guys want to say hello or just get into it?
I think we can just get into it. Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Actually, let me just add one more thing. We're doing a new format this time. So Renee and Mark are going to talk about the WebFOCUS things and things you to make your querying better. And then the last half hour, I'm going to focus primarily on mainframe focus specific things. So once we get to that point, if you don't want to stay for that, then feel free to drop off. But please remember to fill out the evaluations at the end. Okay, I'm done really now.
Okay. The slideshow looks good this time? Full screen?
Yes.
Great. All right. We're off to a great start. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Today's presentation, I thought would, did you know? I kind of picked that out like, did you know that we could do this? These are kind of the things that came into support recently, either directly via a case or from a customer in a conversation. And I thought it would be nice to kind of talk about these things. Some of these things have been around in the product for a very long time, but you don't need to know something until you need it kind of deal. So hopefully I'm presenting it. And if you do need to know it at a later date, hey, you have the information. So here we go. And we do the normal confidentiality claimers and all of that. So what's the agenda? The first thing we're going to talk about is what if I want to display the filters that are in my request or other components that are in the request that I'm running, the report or the chart? How can I do that? We had that capability. It's been around the product for a long time. So we'll talk about that. Did you know that we can actually create descriptive column titles for prefix operators? Did you know that we have the ability to control the placement of the summary lines rather than at the default at the bottom? It could be at the top. So there's just a setting for that as well. An interesting thing that just came up a few days ago was, did you know that we have the ability that you can actually capture the set parameter value to do some additional processing, so whatever that might be in terms of your business requirements. But the capability is there. It's just a matter of knowing how to capture it. And then an interesting question that came up was, I want to be able to, actually, do a question mark like ampersand of a variable, and it's longer than 12 characters. It's truncated. I want to see the full variable name. Maybe I have similar variable names and they're lengthy, and I want to be able to distinguish them, but the output gets truncated to 12 characters. How can I handle that situation in terms of display? So these are some of the things that, like I said, that came into support that I thought were very interesting to bring up, and hopefully they'll bring some enlightenment to everyone attending. So let's talk about display syntax components. So how do you display like maybe selection criteria from a report or chart in the request? So there is this display syntax component feature. And the way you would do that is within a heading or footing of your report or your chart, you can actually make reference to these attributes. These attributes actually look like field names, and we'll see that in the next slide. If it's something that's lengthy, it's actually going to wrap. If it doesn't fit on the heading or footing line, it'll wrap and go to another line. And I'll show that in an example as well. So what are these attributes that are available? And by the way, this feature has been in the product, if I remember correctly, probably since like 82 or 40. It's been around a long time, and customers have used it. I think where it's been utilized most is when they wanted the selection criteria for a request to be displayed in the actual request, right? So that's that top one. So the way you reference it in the heading or footing, right? You know how you reference fields and headings or footings like with the little caret, right? And then you say request.filters. And what that'll do, it's an internal reference, and it'll list the if or the where conditions that you have that are part of that report or chart request. And what if I want the verb objects? Well, I'll use request.verb_objects. What if I want to see all the sort fields, whether they be by or across fields? I can use request.sort_keys as the reference, as the attribute reference in the heading or footing. If I want just the by fields, then I would do request.byKeys. It makes pretty much sense, right? You can go across a request.across keys for the across fields if they exist in the request. The last two are interesting. Request.verb_objects_context gives you the display command used for each of the fields. And I apologize. Someone's ringing my bell, so let's just ignore it. So anyway, what else is available is sort_keys_context with the request.prefix. Those are all the sort field phrases in the request. What's interesting about, like I said, those it's displayed in the report or the chart, the actual command. So you'll see like the verb, like they'll use, some might be the verb, but you'll see right. But if there's any kind of reference with that verb object, you'll kind of see it as well directly. And even for the sort_keys_context, what's interesting is if there's other commands that are associated with that by or across on that line, that'll get displayed as well. You won't see the additional commands like the on sort field commands in that, but I just wanted to make that point in case this is of interest. So here's just source code. You guys like code. I know there's a lot of coders out there, right? So here's a chart request, a graph file with a heading, and I just did two of those attributes. I did the request.verb_objects and the request.sort_keys. And I actually built this in Designer, so I'm going to show you Designer next. And you can see the horizontal axis is product category, that's the sort field. And then you can see I have 5 verb objects: revenue, MSRP, gross profit, discount, and cost of goods. And if you look at the actual canvas, you'll see that I actually typed in some text with those be able to display that context within this chart heading. And I still have the chart heading open. You can see the little WYSIWYG edit chart tool, and notice the little X associated with off to the right-hand side there, just to kind of showcase it. So if I go and I actually save that heading, that's what it looks like. For a chart in Designer, it'll actually do the substitutions, and you actually will see the values in preview. Again, it's preview bit data. Yes?
Pierre has a question. In which version is all this available?
This is actually available, the syntax, since 8.203. So if you're on 8.203 or higher, you can make those field references, those attribute references in any report or chart. The Designer piece obviously is separate, but that's not contingent on utilizing this feature. I'm just showing it from a Designer perspective.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So we're seeing it in Designer. In chart, you'll see the preview values. It's based off of what you have. I have live data 1,000. You know, if you're going against all of the data, probably would not be likely if you're developing within Designer. But so you might not see exactly what you would see at runtime, but it will do the substitution. And so then I want to show you the output. Now I did this one. This was SQL Server retail table. And I did run with SQL, and I did that deliberately because I wanted to point out that while the heading, right, has the display objects, right, so we see our 5 verb object fields and the sort field, which is the product category. If you take a look at the trace there, and I know it's a little small, but you'll get the presentation to take a closer look. You notice you're seeing what's displayed in the report in the heading, not the underlying field names of the request. So just be aware of that. I wanted to point that out, and that's kind of why I did it this way. Now, I changed the chart a little bit, and I added some selection criteria on sale year, and I added some additional attributes, the attributes just to show them. There's no cross field, it's a chart, Designer, that kind of thing. You notice the display command, and it might be a little bit easier to see on the next one when I run it. And again, I ran it with SQL trace, right? You could see here, I have my display and sort fields. Notice the by just has product category. The across, it's telling you there were no tokens for that, meaning no across fields in the request. there's my filter. I had the one filter on sales year, right? 2020. And then the display commands, it will say right, even though the request has some, but then you see what was there, and then the buy, the actual buy, and by product category. So if you have other things that are on those lines, they'll display in those display commands and sort phrase if you pick those attributes. So let me go a step further. What if I had a report in Designer? So this is a standard report, or it could have been a grid report. That's the difference between the two. Everything else is a chart in Designer, except standard and grid. And they're underlying table requests. And the only difference between the two is by display. By default, with a standard report, by display is off, meaning you'll only see the sort field values when they change. But with by display on or by, it utilizes, they're synonymous with each other in the tool and in the language. You'll see the by field repeated for every line. So here you can see that I actually typed in the heading, the syntax. And if you actually decide to save this and come back in, what you might see is a condensed heading like that. And notice it has a scroll bar in Designer. But you can double click in it to see everything if you want. This report is a little different. I added a whole bunch more sort fields. I have product category, product subcategory, model. I did store business region, store business subregion, and store country. I have sale year as an across. The summaries, the verb objects are revenue and quantity sold. And then you can see I have some filters there as well. And we'll take a look at the actual source code, because again, I know you guys want to see the source. I didn't highlight everything. I just highlighted the heading and the request dot verb objects. I didn't put all because it ran out of space, right, to show you source code, but you can go back to the prior, and I'll do that here, to see what's actually coded for the heading, right, is right there, right? So that's exactly what's in the heading for this request.
Renee?
Yes.
Mr. Greenhouse has a question. What displays if you're not using English?
Oh, come on, Art. Really?
I would think the commands would be in English, but whatever your field
know,
names would be in whatever language you're in.
Exactly, exactly. It's whatever is the commands that are, I'm being facetious, I'm sorry. Art, you just had to throw that out there. But yes, it will be what the commands are in the actual request. That's kind of what I said. It's what's in the request. It pulls it out. It's not going to do anything special. Like I said, pulling it from the synonym with the underlying field names. It's going to be what's physically in the request. The only kind of thing that you might see different, like I said, is the verb right versus some. It'll put out right, even if some is listed in there. But otherwise, you'll see what it's actually in the source code. Thank you, Art. So that's the code. And then here I just showed you.
Wait, hold on. He says didn't mean that. Meant the descriptive name on the line to the left of the colon.
Oh, that's just text. That's just the text that's in the heading.
So it would be in whatever language they wrote the text in.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, that's just text. That's just display. Right now, we're just talking about how can I get the command to display in the heading? And I just put display objects. I could have put Renee as the text colon and then request dot, sort keys, something like that. That would be valid. But I did show the output here for everything in this report. And I just wanted to make a note that if you look at the filters section there, you'll see two where statements. The first where they were ordered together. Otherwise, I wouldn't be getting report output because the business region and the store country would be mutually exclusive. France and Germany cannot be in North America as a business region. But that's on one line. And then the sales year for 2022 and 2023 is on another one. The styling does get a little bit when it has to wrap and it has multiple lines. So just be aware of that when utilizing this feature. But again, it's if you need this, like I said, the most that I've seen that customers have made when they've inquired about something like this is usually they want the filters. So that's the key thing. So request.filters is the most commonly utilized. But if you have a need for something else, those other attributes are there for reference. Any questions further on that? We're good?
We're good.
Thanks. All right, so descriptive column titles for prefix field. I love this feature, and I don't think enough customers are aware that it exists. So I wanted to bring it out. It's been in the product, I believe, since like 8205. but there's a set command. And by default, if you've ever used prefix operators, and I'm sure everyone on this call has used a prefix operator in a request, right? Whether you wanted an average, a percent, a count distinct, a max, a min, etc., so forth. You know, you get the prefix operator in the title. It's not pretty. It's okay. And it might be perfectly valid. But what if I want to write it out? Do I have to change all the column titles for those fields? Not necessarily. There's a set PRF title setting. By default, it's short, so you get the current behavior that you all know that exists, right? With the prefix operator there as part of the title. You might see count, right? Count or count distinct, spell that, but you know. But that's the default, short. But there is an option called long. And what long says is give me descriptive titles for those instead of those just default prefix operated. And actually, they can be translated into any standard language that the server has available, configured for, and everything. So we'll see an example of that because I think that's a pretty cool feature to be aware of. So if I have my little designer request and I have product category and product subcategory, and I have a bunch of summaries on revenue, the first one is revenue with revenue, then average, then count distinct. And you can see that there in the titles. If you look over into the summaries bucket, you'll see the prefix operators there, and percent and min and max. I'll show you the source code in a moment. But all I did was I added revenue multiple times in Designer into the summary bucket, and then I right-clicked aggregate, and then I picked the prefix operator that I wanted. All right, so this is the default display. And here is what gets generated behind the scenes, right? And the underlying source code, right? I have that AVE dot, CNT dot for count, CNT dot, DST dot for count distinct, PCT dot for percent, and min dot and max dot for minimum and maximum, right? Pretty straightforward. So now I know what you guys are saying. Well, great, Renee, you gave me a set command, but I'm in Designer. I don't want to go out of the tool. And if you're not in 9.3, right, there's set commands there. And this set command is not there even in the 9.3. I'll talk about that briefly in a moment. So what can I do? I don't want to have to, you know, add it into my Designer code because then I can't go back into the tool. So the way we can do that is at the very top, you can see right there, I had set PRF title equal long, highlighted in yellow. Then I dash run it, right? Flush it, make sure that gets executed. And then I have a dash include to my Designer request that you saw that I just created. Assuming you have the ability, right, to do text editor, I know some sites restrict that. You have this capability. You could do this so that I could have my setting in effect to run that request. Now, again, I already showed it to you in preview with the default behavior, right? So it's short titles, but here I changed the PRF title to long. That's all you have to do. As long as the setting is in effect, and I can use, like I said, a little text editor, put the setting, flush it, do my dash include, so I don't have to impact my Designer request, and I can still go in the tool and make changes as necessary. But you can see the effect that it had, that it changed the column titles to be more descriptive. I think it's a very nice and cool feature. Not enough people are aware of it. And again, I noted here that, by the way, WebFOCUS release 9.3, there's actually, you can manage the common set commands directly in Designer. Caveat here, not this command, right? Not as many customers know about this command or utilize it. We definitely tried to put the more popular ones in the tool, like some of the things like as names, right? So if you're in 9.3 and you go into Designer, there's a little option that if you click it, you can manage set commands. It's pretty extensive. I mean, it's not all the set commands, but some of the most popular ones, customers that want the access to, like empty report. I remember hold list. You know, def cent year thresh, right? No data, big one, right? Always want to be able to control that. Maybe show blanks as well. So it doesn't have this setting even in 9.3. But again, just to be aware of, 9.3 has a really big plus. That's one of my favorite features, I have to say, in 9.3 that they did for Designer, is that they added the set commands in there, you know, definitely. And it's more extensive than it was like than in Info Assist even. Okay, I did my plug there for 9.3. So, okay, we see it for English, but what if I wanted for French? I set language to French. I have the PRF title for long, and yo, and behold, I picked French because, hey, my name is, first name's Renee. Why not?
And you did
And
that for art, right?
yeah, I did too, right? Did you see I was prepared and I didn't even know art was going to be on the session today, but that's why I thought it was funny. I picked it up before. But it's great because you can actually have translated titles. So why not take advantage? Again, one of the caveat I do want to mention, and this kind of makes sense. So what if in my request, I decided to go in and change one of those and rename one of those column titles, as you can see here. I changed the average one to say my average revenue. Silly title, but hey, you get the point. And then you can see there, it actually changed it to show you what I did. So, okay, now if I run with my PRF title equal to long, what happens? The other ones are descriptive, but the one that I renamed will not be changed, right? So if you decide to rename one of the titles, the column titles, or whatever ones you do rename, that's going to supersede and take precedence over the setting. Just to be aware of it. But again, the idea of the setting is I don't want to have to go in and have to rename all of these. And maybe I want something more descriptive than what we default to in the product and the language. So why not take advantage of a feature that might be there? Again, it's to be aware of it when you need it, right? That's the point of these sessions. Okay. We don't have anything further on that. Summary lines, controlling the placement of where the lines are for your totals, your subtotals, and everything. Usually, right, your totals for the report are at the end. And if you're doing subtotals, right, the end, just before that sort field value changes, you'll see them. And that's default. And there's a setting called set subtotals that's defaults to below. Below is the default. It's there. And we have to keep that, right? We've also for consistency across releases and everything. But there is a setting, and this setting allows to say, hey, I want them above. Now, notice I put a caveat there and underlined it and italics it, that if you do use this feature, it will display the sort field values for every line in the output. Just to be aware of that, that is expected, and I'll talk about a little bit of that in a moment as we see it. So here I'm in Designer. I created, and this is the same kind of cross you saw in the earlier one for the report. I just wanted to use something that had a little bit of oomph to it, right? There's a little bit going on in this report in Designer. And here, what I did in Designer is I enabled column totals. So you could see the little circle there, and I checkbox that, right? And then you could see in preview. And just to know that you're in preview, you're in a responsive canvas because I left the output format to HTML5. So you'll kind of see that at the bottom, it kind of simulates active, right? So active reports. So you'll see that. So you can see the total on there. And then you'll notice I just on the left-hand side, I put a pop-up where just to show I had right-clicked on product category. I went to insert breaks there, and then I did aggregate columns. Now I could have did recalculate totals, but I just have columns that are part of the data here. There is no calculation, so I'm safe picking up aggregate columns. I'll get the right. It's just a simple sum, right? So that's fine. And then you can see here in the output and preview, for example, subtotal charger, and you can see the subtotals there for that product subcategory. So far, so good. So what if I'm in Designer? I need to set subtotals above. Well, there is a feature right there. So where I enable column totals in that section, once you enable column totals, it becomes enabled. It's not checked automatically. You have to check it. And if you check it, it says show totals above detail. Underlying, you're going to get the subtotals above. Now, I did that, but in preview, I'm still seeing the total at the bottom, and I'm still seeing my subtotals just prior to the sort field changes, the sort field value changes, and that's to be expected. I think this can be just a touch confusing. That's why I like to mention it as well. If you enable this feature within Designer, when you're in preview, you'll still see everything as if it was behaving as subtotals below, the default behavior. And the reason for that is just because this is preview. But at runtime, at execution time, it will respect the subtotals above setting. So just to show you the underlying code, having checked that checkbox, I just highlighted where the subtotals were and everything like that for the request. You can see on table set subtotals above, right, at the bottom there. And that's what gets generated by Designer for this feature. And then
Renee,
when I run it, yes?
so Art has another question. Can you use this on a field name sort For example, on field name subtotal above, in addition to the on table? And the answer would be no. You said it's for the whole report. You're not an individual field.
Absolutely. It's for the whole report. It's all or nothing. There's no saying just direct it for only one thing or one piece of it, like only for the total of the report and not the subtotals. It's an all or nothing setting. Absolutely.
And here's a really good question. Does the above total truly work for active format or only on HTML and Excel?
If I remember correctly, it doesn't work for active. I think there was some caveats, and especially with HFreeze, this feature does not has implications as well.
Yeah, I want to say if you did have it above, it would work only on the initial rendering, but any changes you make in the active report environment would go back to bottom. Yeah,
absolutely, exactly. And that's where it really doesn't pay to utilize it necessarily in that particular output. But for everything else, it will be respected. And like the other caveat I mentioned is HFreeze will impact in terms of this setting as well. So we have it above. Here's the output. You see our total and subtotal there. But the thing to mention here is, and it is different, is you will get the sort field values to display on every line of the report. So the by setting, if you try to do by display, it's going to be ignored. If you use subtotals above, it's ignored. And actually, came up with the customer recently that what the subset, I really wanted not to display the values for every line. When the feature was developed, that's how it was developed. But there is a new feature in as a request to see if we can enhance the setting to allow for the by field values not to be displayed if you enable this feature. So maybe if you were doing Excel, it wouldn't make sense. You would rather have this anyway. But maybe for something else, you really want to not have the by display. You want it off, like normal standard behavior. But it will automatically put it on, and you can't disable it. All right. Very cool feature. Customers use this a lot. It comes up all the time in support every once in a while. And again, there is a potential new feature to maybe not display those sort fields. And then here's two little tidbits that came in. This just came in a few days ago, capturing set parameter values. So how can you capture it? Now, everybody knows I can just do a question mark set parameter name, like question mark set X retrieval, right? Or question mark set short path, right? Without the dash. And I'll get the output of whatever that parameter is set to, like for short path, focus, right? Or SQL, right? Or X retrieval, on or off, right? But there's an actual dash set, question mark set parameter option. And I have the ampersand there just for the moment, but there's a better way, an easier way. But I did that deliberately because I think in some past presentations, someone might have done it this way. So I kind of wanted to utilize this as a stepping stone to give you the best answer at the end. So what you can do is if you want to actually capture the setting of a parameter set value, I can use dash question mark set parameter, and I can put ampersand, or actually I can put any kind of variable name there that I want to capture it. So let me show you here. So here I'm doing it with setting as the variable. So I do dash question mark set across line ampersand. So if I didn't have the ampersand, I just have across line, right? I get my output. It's just whatever it's set to, is it on, right, by default. But if I had changed it before I did this command, then it'll be whatever that value is. Then if I want to test it, I could take that ampersand and I can do, and you can see in the lower part of that, right? I could do a dash if ampersand equal and then blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm not putting the code there, but you get the idea. The one thing I want to point out is the variable name doesn't have to be ampersand. It can actually be anything you want. I could have called it amper Renee, and that would certainly work as well. And then a cross lines value, because that's the parameter I'm utilizing here, would be in amper Renee, right? Or amper setting in this case.
And can I just add, if you don't have the amper setting and just say dash question mark set across line.
Yes, right? Yes, I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that.
Okay. Sorry.
You think my punchline, I said there's a better way to do this. But yeah,
and that's, I won't say it.
Okay, thank you. But ta-da, what I could do is just say dash question mark set parameter, right? So I could just do dash question mark set across line with no variable. Now remember, most of the time you would just do question mark, right, without the dash, right, just to get your value out of everything. So here we're doing dash question mark set across line. And what it will do is, because I eliminated and I omitted a variable after it, it will create a variable of that name of the set parameter and populate it with the value. That's the easiest and the most simple solution. But I wanted to demonstrate the other things because I had seen slides and other things in the past. So I wanted to kind of reference it. But this is actually the best answer, the best solution, the easiest solution. So you can see where I did a dash question mark set across line, and then right away after that I did a dash if amp across line equal, and then I can go from there. So let me just show you 3 different scenarios. I know I'm running close to time. So here's where I did some sets against cross line, no data, original, then I set it to NA. Then I did all, short path, and X retrieval. So here I did the amper setting variable, and you can see what the output is. Across line is on, no data was a period, then it was NA because I set it. All is off, short path focus, X retrieval on. Here, I did it with a custom variable name that just happens to be the same name as the parameter name. I don't like using reserved words, but I did it here because what customers, you guys are naturally going to want to probably do that, but it could be do something different. The no data, I have amper no data, but then I kept the amper setting for the second one so I could keep track. Maybe I want different variables. That's where this might come into play. If I want to keep track of something and I want those variables, I might want to use a different variable name. And then same output. But here's the best. This is the actual answer to the real query, is don't use a variable name. Just do dash question mark set and your set parameter. And then you can use whatever that set parameter name is. That's the amper variable name, and it will contain the value. And you can see I removed all the amper references from the dash question mark set command and let them default. And you can see I get the same exact output. So very cool feature. Not enough customers are aware that capability is there. And it does come up from time to time. And like I said, this was a recent inquiry into support. So, but I wanted to showcase all the possibilities, because what's the possibility is you might be looking at some legacy code that might have something like this in there, and you want to understand how it's working and why it's working that way. And you certainly can have that amper variable reference as well, but it could be whatever name you want to give it. But if you don't give it a name, here's the way to do it. And it's the easiest and the most simple solution. And then I have the last point that I wanted to talk about that came into support is I can use a dash question mark space amper, right, to get all, if you don't specify a string of a parameter name or part of a parameter name, the start of a variable, right, you'll get all local, global, system, and statistical variables displayed. Or I could do a dash question mark amper and the actual amper variable name, right? So let me just do dash question mark space amper, and that'll give me the whole listing. And I know there's a lot there, but what I wanted to showcase is any variables that are greater than 12 characters will actually be truncated and they'll have a little caret. So what if I have something like this, where I did a dash set of amper, a really, really long parameter name, and I said, hello world. We all know hello world, right? And then I decide to display it with a dash question mark amper, right, of that parameter name. What's my output? Well, my output is where you see it truncates the amper variable, right, to 12 characters. Now, what if I had a lot of several amper variables that had the first 12 characters the same? That's really not helpful for me. So how can I, obviously I wouldn't be talking about it if there wasn't an option, right? So you do see the continuation character, but we want to see the whole thing. Well, very cool feature you might not be aware of is I can do a dash question mark amper, the parameter name, or just amper on its own, and use the keyword save print. And that keyword save print is the key, because now you can see I can see the full parameter. And this works actually, even if I just do a dash question mark amper on its own without, so that I can get the listing for everything. And you can see here, I just showed part of the listing, and you can look at the ones that are more than 12, including the variable I created, it's fully displayed. And one last thing in this last minute that I have really that I ran over, I think, is you could do this for global variables, right? So you could do question mark amper, right, to show global variables, and you could do dash question mark amper to do it. But you can use the save print option on that as well. So here I did a dash question mark amper, and you could see that the global variables are truncated. And then I use save print on it, and then you can see that they're not. You can just see the full length. And like I said, these are things that came into support. I thought they were pretty interesting, and having done this for a really long time, I love the code. I know there's all coders out there. And I just thought this was information that might be valuable for everyone to be aware of. So hopefully you get some takeaways from this, maybe something that you can run with right away. And thank you very much for your time.
Renee,
And if there are any questions?
can you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
All right, so another difference with the save print is it actually creates the set and default
Yes,
code
it does.
that you
I
can
forgot
copy
to
and
note that.
paste.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I meant to mention that. Thank you, Walter. Absolutely, because if you notice the output prior, right, you don't get those, but there you actually do see the set and the defaults. Very cool, and you can do a copy and paste from that or redirect, right? So yes, I meant to mention that. Thank you.
And Art mentioned it too. You can put it to a
Art
file
mentioned
and
it, so of
execute it
course.
later.
Yes, but that's why I did the screenshot too, because I did want to show it right away with one or the other. So I know I'm over time, so that's kind of why. I can talk, right? Everybody, I can, listen, from Brooklyn. What can I tell you? I can go on and on and on. I love the language, and I want to tell you everything there is. But yes, that's another great feature of utilizing that save print. So
Great,
again,
thank you.
Really appreciate it. And give me a second here.
Up.
And stop share. Perfect.
All right, bro, you're up.
All right, let me share my screen and we'll get started. You can see everything, Mr. Walter?
Yes, I see your messy desktop.
All right, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. See the other one. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. And today we're going to talk about something really, really cool, right? How many customers out there, if by a raise of hand, are running Resource Analyzer today? Can we get a count on that?
We got 4. We got 5 so far. 6. Four.
Okay, I probably believe there's
about a half dozen.
Yeah, I believe there's a number more. And how many customers out there are running Resource Governor? Please raise your hand. Probably no one. One is. Anyone, Walter, or no?
Nope, looks like just the one.
Okay, so let's talk about it, right? So I'm going to be coming from the MDS system side of this. And what a number of customers are calling me and saying, Mark, what can we do? Because we're running WebFOCUS queries. And as we run those queries, they're getting killed by some type of governance in the database after the fact, which means they're running for a certain amount of time and then they're being killed and they get nothing back anyway. What are we doing there? We're wasting CPU cycles. Very, very expensive. What can we do about that? In the 9.2 release, 9.2.x, I've worked with engineering and we re-enabled Resource Governor. And I'll show you some of that, what we're doing. So Resource Governor, again, a governance word, we're going to call it governance. A number of customers that are calling me that are also looking at Open Data Hub for mainframe says, what can we do for governance, Mark? I know we got Analyze that could collect information, but what could we do for governance? And maybe something like Power BI or Tableau or one of the things that we offer with Open Data Hub. All right. So let me go to the session here. Let me bring up my screen. Minimize this. Where is it? Okay. So what we have, and this is all running on the mainframe. And again, it can run on a distributed system as well. So I'm just doing everything on the mainframe. So on the mainframe, I'm going to IBM Z, and there's the port I'm listening to. What we have to do is we have to enable Resource Analyzer and Governor. And you are probably lucky enough if you're using the new IBI, what's the verbiage I want to use? The new licensing scheme, you get analyzer, and governor with the product. So it's not something additional. If you're licensed to use basically the key that gives you everything, you already have it, but are not using it. So what can we do about that? Let's talk about how we enable it, how we do it. And I also have a little thing that I'll give to Brengel that he can give to you how to set it. Right? So I made some little notes here, what you got to do to set it. And we could send that out. It's in the doc, but this is the Mark Nesson cheat sheet. Okay? So we're going to go to the server here. We're going to look what I've got. And I've got under here, I've got resource management. And I've got both enabled. I've got resource governor and resource analyzer enabled. So on this, it's collecting information, as well as the repository I'm using here is the FOCUS repository. Because some people may say, you know what, Mark, I don't have a relational database to put it in. So I'm saying put it in the FOCUS database if you want, that we provide. Okay? So we're going to go in and we're going to look at what I did. How did I enable this? What did I do? So there's a resource governor section that you can go in and we can see some business rules. So you can create a rule, and this is all done from the console, everyone. You don't need a third party or something else to do it. You go in, and I created a couple today, and we'll go over those. And one of them I call CarF, and we'll look at that. And basically that's saying if the user ID is MKTMJN, he's a super user. And if that user doesn't put a where condition, one or more relational tests, the query will be turned away. What are we doing? We're spending too much money. The enterprise customers are calling and saying, Mark, what can we do about that? And I'm telling them we can enable analyzer and governor. So all I'm saying here is when I run it, you got to have the left side of the relation needs country. So you can't just say select star from car or table file car, print star in. And what are we going to do? We're going to build these rules. We're going to build a general template rule that you could apply to any data source. Okay? The other one I did, if you see this here, MKTMJN, that's my user ID. And when I ran this, it didn't work. And it took me a while to realize why. I then built the other rule with MKTMJN and noticed that that rule does what? It prefixes it. I put it in with the connection attribute. So to say, when I'm using OPSIS, that OPSIS ID is MKTMJN, which is a RACF ID, ACF2 or top secret. In my case, it is a RACF ID. That is the omnipotent user, meaning if I'm MKTMJN, I can run whatever I want. So you might have certain IDs in your environment where you might say, listen, it's got to be this ID, let them run it. If it isn't, let's put the rule into effect. So we got the rules here. I created the business rule. And then we can go here, right? We see it. And then we're going to go down and look a little further. So the first thing is the business rule. We need a business rule. And if we go to my doc here, the first thing we're going to do is enable resource governor and analyzer. So you could go back as soon as we're done with this session. After Brengel goes, you could go back and try this. Don't put it on production. Do it on your dev or sandbox. So you enable resource analyzer and governor, and you configure. And again, I use the FOCUS or relational. Again, if you don't have a relational database, just try it with FOCUS. This way you don't have to get anybody else involved. You create a new business rule. We go into resource management, and we say, add a rule using the wizard. You can do them manually using the editor, but you need to know the code and the syntax. So build it with the wizard first and foremost. And then go in, click next, and we're going to build a business rule called Focus Friday. So that's the name of the rule. And notice that it says, is there a super user? It asks you. You can put in many users delimited by a semicolon. Allow print star or select. You're going to say yes. But you're only going to allow that if you have some predicates.
Mark,
Yes.
can you just hit the plus and expand that or magnify it a little bit down at the lower?
Over here, right, bro?
Yeah. There you go.
How's that?
Much better.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So when you go in here and you build the rule, the resource governor rule, you can tell it what you want to do. Again, I want to make sure you've got a predicate on those particular queries you're going to be running from WebFOCUS and or from Open Data Hub using another tool. And you can then go in and add what rule, what predicates you want to put on. Why do we want to do that? Customers are running select star left and right. And all of you that are on the phone, you're probably saying, that's right, Mark, we're using up all kinds of CPU. We're using the zip engines. And then it gets canceled a half hour later because the governor kicks in for whatever the backend database you've got. Again, this is a preemptive governor. And then we go here and resource management. We give it the rule. And then we say start data source monitoring. You have to have the data source being monitored for the rule to kick in. And it's very simple, guys. It may look complex here, but if I can do it, anybody can do it. So we say start data source monitoring, right? Start data source monitoring. And then we click add. Well, we did the car. You got to tell it which source you want to monitor. So we'll do it for everything. You can tell it which sources, again, you want to monitor. And that same rule can be used for multiple table requests, multiple masters. You add it to the knowledge base. The knowledge base has to know about it. So we add it to the knowledge base. And then we select the business rule that we created above. So you go in, you turn on governor and analyzer. You then go in and start creating the knowledge base and then a business rule. And then you tell it what you want to do. So once you build this and you list the knowledge base, you can then go in. And this was a bug we had that's fixed in 9.2. You couldn't turn it on, right? So when you went here in the govern status and ensure right-click menus displayed, you can turn it on, off, or advise. Wow, you mean you could advise me that this query may be canceled in the future? Absolutely, yes. You could put it in advise mode so people say, oh, we're allowed to run that query today, but we might not be able to run it tomorrow because we're not putting the right query together when we build it. And that's it. Let's run a few examples so I can show you.
Mark?
Yes.
There's a question.
Yes.
Understanding that the answer is somewhat that depends. Any
Yes.
recommendations on how much resource analyzer data needs to be retained, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, to get a good result from the resource usage type rules?
That's a very good question. I would say I would look at two different modes of that. I would look at it for daily and then your monthly, when it's running heavier. Again, as you build these rules, this is the custom rule. It don't care what you have. You just know you want this rule on. So it's not collecting info to decide. You're deciding before you put it on. You're saying, I want this on. I don't want to select star. I want them to make sure they have a couple predicates to it, a where condition or a couple of them, and it'll start helping your environment right away.
But don't we have some rules that say if the CPU usage goes over a certain threshold?
Yes, but
I think that's what he's looking at.
Yeah, there is. If the CPU goes over a threshold, then it'll actually stop that query. It knows, but it's got to build the knowledge base so it knows those type of queries.
Okay.
Again, for today, I was thinking maybe doing a part two, Walter, is the first one today is just adding the rule and seeing it take effect.
Okay,
All
cool.
right, let's go back to the server. So in the server, I got the business rule. You're talking about resource thresholds, knowledge base. Let's go here. Let me show you what I've got. And then these are the ones that I've got. I've got them a knowledge base, and I usually call them car NB, so I know it's a knowledge base. You can get confused by what you're doing here. And here's a Focus Friday one. And then when you go here, you can say view the rules, right? You could see the rule that you have. And then what we do is we go into the applications or the app folders, and in here we'll go against the car file. I did car and video track. So let's look at this one and say properties. Look what it gives you at the bottom. You control. You want to monitor and you want to govern. And you can say off and advise. Pretty cool. This is very cool. Now, let me give you an example, something that I wrote here. How am I doing on time?
No, you're good.
Good, great, perfect. Let's go to IBI SAN. And you're going to see, oops, let me go back to here. I know people always said, oh my God, Mark, resource governor, it's too complex. It's simple. It's simple that you're going to see. And again, if I go back over here, I put in car govern and when it works. So let's look at it. Let's look at the code. Table file car print star. When I built the rule, I said that it needed something in there and where or an if or something. So when I run this query, warning, your request print star or count star. Resource governor canceled this request. Govern mode is govern. Remember the three modes we had? Off, govern, or advise. Govern canceled the rule based on this knowledge base, MKTMJ and CAR NB. And one or more relational tests are required. So over here, that comes back. And if we go back to here and we look at one that works, let's go look at it. Notice the difference. What did I do? And now you get your data back. Pretty impressive. If we go back to that rule, I think the one I did, as I logged in as admin here, let me sign out and log in as MKTMJN. And I'm going to choose my rack FID. So now I'm logged in. Remember when I showed you that rule? It said OPSIS MKTMJN. If I go back over here, I think this was the rule I put it on. Govern. And now what happened, guys? It worked because I was the omnipotent user. When I built the rule, I said OPSIS MKTMJN is allowed to run anything. Pretty impressive. Let me go over here for a minute.
Now, Mark, is that noted somewhere in some log or something?
Oh, you guys are tremendous. Let me show you. I like that. Let me show you the log. I'll go to the edit print, and we'll go to mainframe as well. I'll show you two places. In here, scroll down real quick. Resource governor cancel request. You can go down, you can see what's in here. You know, this is what I'm doing. You'll see some more.
But will it show the one that you ran that you were able to run because of the super user rule?
No. I mean, there's a way you can change that and add that to show. We can do that if you'd like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And not only that, let's go to the mainframe console. Let me log in and show you something because everybody wants this. Where's my mainframe 3270? IBM Z.
And while you're logging in, Art is asking, your example, you did print star. What about write, sum, and list? It should be for any verb, right?
Yes, it could be for any verb. Yeah, Art. Yep. Let me log in. Reestablished. Here's my job name that I'm using, guys. Let me go to the edit print, MPF8, and scroll up. Oh, I'm going to read the thing here. Function F7. All that information is recorded in the edit print here as well on the mainframe. See governor type cancel rule. So you could monitor these, you could monitor an ETA 36048 message and produce a nice report, as well as we provide reports out of the box to look for this information. All right. So now I'm going to go in. So that's for WebFOCUS. And you can go in and you can do the same thing with IA or the new tool. I'm forgetting. And we're also going to go here. So this is using the Open Data Hub then. Let me show you what we've got. We're going to connect up. Let me show you. And we're going to go to mainframe. So we're in Power BI. And we're saying, I want to leverage the strength of the reporting server to allow Power BI to have the same effect. So I went here. Where'd I put it? This one's going against VSAM. I'll go against no good first. I want to copy this. So I'm just running a procedure in VSAM2 app folder, and that's the name of the procedure. I could show you if you want to see it. And we're going to say, okay. Look at this magic. Oh my God. Look at this. It's using a knowledge base, VSAM 02KB, and it's saying again, when I'm running using the Open Data Hub, our newest stuff that we have available, it's going to prevent that query from running as well. What do you guys think of this? Because I didn't build the query with a where condition. I'm going to edit it again. I'll go in and I'll run the other one. This one here. I'm going to replace this. Here's the data. I can load it and then move forward with Power BI to build a report against that data. Guys. Whew, I tried to go through it quick and give you exactly what we've got. Let's go. What questions do we have? Is there anything, questions out there? Now I can run a query. I could run whatever I want to run. I could say F1 SSN, put it in here. Here's my data coming back. Remember, that's using the subset of that data. I could, whatever I want to do. Put F1 alpha 10. We could put in like one of the F2 integer. And we can go over here and create just an area chart. There you go. Open Data Hub in action using Resource Governor as well as Analyze. So I wanted to show the whole gamut here, guys, what we could do. And if anybody is really interested in this, please let me know. Because I'm very big on governance. Some customers that I've talked to recently in the last couple of weeks says, Mark, we need a governance for Open Data Hub for mainframe. What could we do? I said, we've got it. We've got it. Now, every bug is probably not worked out, just so you know, but it's a darn good start. I'd say you can probably get 80% of what you're looking for done, as well as those reports. We provide those reports on the server so you can run them. Let me show that for a moment. Let me go back to the server. And where's my server? In here. And go back to here. So a lot of these reports you don't have to write because we provide them. Let's go here. Our reports. Resource Governor. Govern request. And we'll do it for, let's do it for 2024/05/17. Today's 17th already. Oh my God, my birthday's coming up.
Mark, just a few more minutes.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you can see what's going on here. This is all the stuff I was testing for you guys. It keeps track of the data source name, the user that came in, and what it did. Was it an ad hoc, car govern, advise, etc.? So one of the gentlemen was asking earlier, Walter, do we have anything? And you have these reports to ascertain what's going on.
Very good.
And you could reformat it and do whatever you want to do. And then, of course, you can change an active report, a PDF, Excel, or PowerPoint. All right, what do we got, Mr. Walter? Let me stop sharing.
No, you're good. Doug Potter says happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. But this really, guys, this governance work is very big out there when I talk to the mainframe people. Do you have governance on the queries for WebFOCUS as well as for Open Data Hub? And, let Mr. Brengel know what you would like to see in a subsequent presentation. But it's all working out there. Like I said, 9.2 something, and all of this is there. The reports, everything else that you want. Do you find this feature valuable? Again,
so you can put that in the evaluation.
Yeah. It could be on Linux or Windows or whatever you want to do.
It is already an interest in the part 2.
All right. Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And really, anything you need, you know how to reach me on email.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Renee. So that's the techniques, WebFOCUS-y type of things. I want to thank everybody for coming. Mainframe guys, stick around because we got some of the mainframe specific things for you coming up. And we have Porter and Santosh here who's going to ask a few questions. So if you want to stay for the mainframe, you're welcome, but you don't have to. Just remember, if you do leave, please fill out your evaluations.
Walter, I'm going to hang out for the thing just in case anybody thinks of anything else.
Okay.
Or wants me to show them anything else. And I like to listen to you too, so I'm my.
All
So
right,
you're just hanging around. You want to see what I've got to present. What are you getting for your birthday? Are you getting a new squat rack
No,
or
no, but I
plates or
ordered. That's a good
He's
question.
gonna
I
he's gonna
bought
get 2
back.
appetizers before
I-
dinner today.
I bought back M3 chip, 128 gig of memory, 4 terabyte hard drive, and 16 CPUs. I bought myself that for my birthday.
not enough? Not enough.
And to tell the customers out here, CE is running on that as well, Container Edition.
So, Walter, thanks for the time. Great to be here with everyone. But we've just got a couple minutes. We've been working a lot of things with the mainframe in terms of modernization. We wanted to ask our mainframe customers.
Porter.
We wanted to share it and then ask some questions. Sorry.
All right, so 1 second. If I can get a show of hands of everybody who's still here, you guys are all on mainframe, running mainframe focus, or let's just do mainframe. We'll start there because we got now they're dropping. Yeah, well, we had like 30 over 40 people, and it's like I didn't think all of them were on mainframe. 3 hands only. I guess some people are just interested. Okay. 4.
Walter, one other question for you is we teed up a poll. Santosh and I can't see it, but we're wondering if it's because we're not the meeting organizer. Do you show a poll button?
I see them, yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right.
We've connected.
Okay,
So
so I'm gonna pass it over to Porter and Santosh, and you guys ask away.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, here we go. Great to be with everyone. Santosh and I are both in the product division. I'm sure, many of you know us. I'm sure we know many, if not all of you. We've been thinking a lot about our solutions on the mainframe. We know it's, super strong offering that's well used, that's delivering, mission critical capabilities to a lot of our customers. And as we look at it and we think that, the mainframe has staying power, and it's delivering, a lot of value to our existing customers, we're thinking about, what should we do with the mainframe offerings? We introduced Open Data Hub for the mainframe, right? That's a new offering. And so we're always thinking about, should we expand those offerings? Should we modernize those offerings to the benefit of our customers? So we've been doing some research. We've been thinking about it. We like the concept of mainframe data as a service, right? Everything that you're doing with the mainframe now, but potentially opening up some new use cases or new capabilities. So we wanted to share it with our mainframe customers and get some feedback before we kind of take it further and start actually investing in engineering and product management resources as well. So the background on this is, months ago, I was doing some research on mainframe modernization use cases. This comes from Gartner. It was super interesting. We ran through all of them. These are some of the top ones that they looked at. And I won't go through all of these, but as we looked at them and we thought about which ones do we currently support and which ones do we want to potentially expand into, we started looking at these. And like hybrid data grid is a good example of what Data Migrator or Open Data Hub for the mainframe would already do, whether that be real-time data access or potentially moving the data into a cache for use by other applications. So we know that we're supporting that use case today. We started looking at other things, though, like developer experience is an interesting modernization use case where they're saying, hey, can we provide more modern development tools to mainframe developers that would, whether that be Eclipse or whether that be a web-based interface. If you've been introduced to and you've seen Focus Studio, that's a good example of a developer experience use case as well. We've also been looking at API enablement and automation. We actually think Highway Service Manager, which runs natively on the mainframe, could help our customers solve those use cases as well. So as we think about all of these things, we think about our offering, we started thinking about how to position it and maybe what areas to move into. And Santosh came up with this great concept, that he calls mainframe data as a service. So I'll pass it over to Santosh now to kind of go into a little more detail. And I'll keep sharing and driving the slides, Santosh. You can just tell me when to advance.
Thanks, Porter. Can everybody, quick confirmation you can hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm new to this audience, so I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. I manage the data intelligence portfolio of IBI, which includes data quality, application integration, transformation, orchestration, enrichment, all things to do about solving your data problems. And to give you some additional context on why we are talking to you here, Porter did a great job of bringing that together. But just to reiterate, we in IBI, we are a very customer-driven business unit of Cloud Software Group, and we want your inputs, early inputs, to inform and shape our product roadmap. So why I'm here is to collect some early feedback. I have a hypothesis, and I want to validate that hypothesis, that the argument should not be mainframe versus cloud, it should be mainframe with cloud, right? So I'm going to discuss some of the core challenges with accessing data in mainframe. Then we'll do a quick dive into the main pain points. I want to run a poll, see if that resonates with you, and then walk you through some early solution concepts, get some feedback. So let's take a look at the core data access and usability challenges that I've discovered through my research. First one is complexity. Mainframe systems are super reliable, but are inherently complex. So it makes it a little bit challenging to connect with them and connect them with the modern applications that we are building today. Next is a limited accessibility. The traditional methods to access mainframe is a very specialized skill set. I believe this group represents the power users of that community. But in today's world, that also limits us with the number of people who can work with mainframe data. And lastly, one of the core challenges is security and compliance. This is a big one because just integrating mainframe data with your existing systems, making those connections is not enough. It is also about doing it securely and in compliance with your organization policies or the industry standards that you have. That may include data encryption, access controls. All in all, it adds another layer of complexity. So, Porter, if you can go to the next slide. So when we looked at those core challenges, and then we took a little bit of deeper dive, and we tried to run through some pain points, look at user personas, your workflows, how you interact with the different systems. We identified these four problems. The first one is obviously real-time access to mainframe data. It is challenging because we can't get to the data when we need it. Good example is if we run let's say we are running a retail business and we need real-time sales data to adjust inventory or run promotions, the delay in extracting that data might cost us in terms of missed sales opportunity. The second one on this list is integrating mainframe data with your modern applications, maybe a hurdle, a key challenge, because mainframe systems don't have modern APIs. So it becomes tough to connect your modern applications, extract the data, and use it. Let's take an example, a similar example. Consider we are running, we have a mobile app for a major financial bank, and we want to integrate customer data from your mainframe with this mobile app. That integration will not be possible without modernizing the access to that mainframe data. Then the third one is seamless data flow between mainframe systems and any other platforms. Why we need it? Because without this sync up or without this seamless exchange of information, that can lead to data discrepancies or inconsistencies, and fixing those are very time consuming. Another good example, this is actually an example from a big healthcare payer. They need to consistently provide patient data across their different systems, and they're unable to do it because there's no seamless data flow from their systems that are running on mainframe versus their patient-facing or provider-facing apps that result in inconsistent patient records, could lead to potential medical errors and overall impact the patient care. And finally, self-service. You guys are very familiar with self-service. Many of us, non-technical guys, can't access the data without needing technical support, especially a business user who's not inclined technically. So picture a marketing team that's trying to analyze customer behavior data that's stored on a mainframe. If they go to IT and it takes several days or weeks, that will definitely delay their launch plans and impact their outreach campaigns. So based on our understanding of how customers are using or leveraging their main infrastructure, we identify these four main pain points. At this point, I would like Walter to run a quick poll so we can understand how you stack rank, which one of these pain points are the highest on your priority list, and then we can go from there. Walter, let me know when you have.
The poll should be out there available.
Yeah, I see the poll. I don't see the responses, so you let me know when we can end the poll.
Here we go. They're coming in now. Anyone else? One person of 28 responded. There we go. 2. Wake up, people.
Walter, I'm having a problem clicking on it for the answer.
You're having a problem
Right,
clicking
I
on it.
I see the 4 options. Santosh says,
You might not be able to click on it as a panelist.
oh, okay. I was going to add info too. Okay.
Okay, we got 3. Come on, guys. We need your input. There we go. Couple more. Give it another 30 seconds. This is good. They're really thinking about the question before they commit to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, makes sense. I believe we have a couple of minutes. I'll wrap up quickly so we can give them a few more seconds.
Okay. Do you want to keep the poll up while you continue, or?
Sure, we can do that. And then when we run the next one, we can close this one.
Okay, cool.
That sounds like a great idea. All right. Porter, can we jump to the next slide, please?
Yep.
Thank you, sir. All right. Looking at those key pain points, then we did a little more research on the solution concept. These are still early in terms of the core capabilities that we bring in IBI and how we can map it to some solution concepts that solve your key pain points. The first one is an integration toolkit that could potentially ease the connection process for your app developers who are trying to bridge the mainframe systems with a modern application framework. Think of a developer who can now easily connect with mainframe systems and integrate that data into a business workflow. A good example I have is finance department when they're trying to connect their budgeting software directly to mainframe financial data. The next one is real-time data APIs. This is a good one. This is close to my wheelhouse, so to say. If we could hire an app developer who has 0 mainframe experience and ask them to develop a mobile app, how would they interface with their existing mainframe system? Example would be, let's say you want to create a mobile app that analyzes your customer behavior using the data that's sitting in your mainframe to deliver more personalized interactions and experiences in the app. So for this developer to interact with this data API, it will significantly improve our agility in developing those apps, as well as reduce the development costs. You're not looking for specialized skill sets. You're consuming data as a service. And then finally, a no-brainer, a no-code or low-code interface. This is going to be a user-friendly platform. We have done that across all of our IBI products, and we can continue to evolve the existing platform to become more and more user-friendly that allows us as in business users to discover, and I call them citizen data users, you can call them anything, pseudo-technical users know a little bit of SQL, know a little bit of coding, but they don't want to have a dependence on IT. So how can we enable that access to discover, to retrieve, to manage that data without extensive coding? Such as let's say a sales manager, he has to access a performance data before their quarterly business review. Can they pull that data without asking IT team to pull that data for him so that it's both relevant, up to date, and within the control of the sales manager? So this is basically a very early view of the solution concepts. Our product vision is obviously to expand our solution offering so that we can get more bang for your buck. We want to turbocharge your existing mainframe setup by giving you tools and solutions that you can integrate with your modern apps. You'll save a lot of money, and there will be a lot of new possibilities that you can unlock. So the key question that I would like to run at this point would, do you see these solutions as key solutions that would address the challenges you're facing? So we'll run a quick poll just to gauge, do you see value in these approaches?
Okay, it is up there.
And there is no right or wrong answers. If there are solutions or pain points that are not covered here, just feel free to add from your experience, whatever you think is a key challenge.
It's not multiple choice, so they're a little shyer.
Yeah. We can keep running this poll until the end of this call. I don't think we have any more polls.
No.
I'm really appreciative of your time here. We will take a look at the data points that we collect. We'll try to brainstorm and come back to you in the next couple of sessions and show you where we are leading with this solution. Thank you for your time. I'll give it back to Walter. Thank you for letting us do this.
Thanks,
Yep.
Santosh. Thanks, Porter.
Yep. Thanks, Walter, for giving us the time, and appreciate the input.
All right, no problem. Well, I don't have time to do my presentation now, but but I'm still going to do it. So it doesn't matter if we go over or not. All right, let me clear some things out of the way. Okay, do you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today is the new IBI FOCUS licensing and how to install it once you get a new key. So we're going to talk about when would you need a new key and how to apply it. So a new license is required when you change your hardware, when your current license expires, if you have any contract changes, or if you're doing DR testing. All of these items would or could trigger you requiring a new key. So how do you get a new key? Open a case saying we're updating our hardware. We're going from a Z15 to a Z16. We'll ask you for the information that we need. From FOCUS, we need to know your current FOCUS level and what your current license looks like. And these two FOCUS commands will get us that. And then from the operator command on the new machine, if you do a D, which is display M equals CPU, because we want to see the information about your CPU, and then that will give us what we need to generate a new key. If this is for disaster recovery, indicate the end of your disaster recovery test. We'll get approval from the Salesforce to send you a new key, and the new license will be uploaded to the case. The new license is uploaded as a zip file, and it will contain all of these files. Actually, I should say it could contain all of these files. Depending on your version, you may have 2 of them, or you may have more. So the items in red you will always be sent. You're always going to be sent a FOCLive.xmit. This contains the IBI CPU ID module, which controls the licensing. The item in, I call it mustard, will be sent for version 7, 6, 10, and higher. And that's our F license file, and that controls your features. Features like zip, active technologies, and there was one other thing. All of the features are turned on for you automatically, but there is information in the F license that shows your expiration date. So we will send you both, even though you don't really need to have an additional F license, because if you do a question mark CPU ID in the FOCUS product, we want to make sure you see the proper expiration date. And that expiration date in some cases is coming from the F license. Items in green are sent for older versions. Older versions meaning versions that are prior to 9.2.0. Items in blue are for FOCLog reporting. So the FOCExec is the FOCExec library for what you need for all the FOCLog reports. And then we have the master, and then we have the instructions within the PDF. If you are in a really older version, less than 7.3.12 or 7.3.12 or less, I should say, you will also get an FL load XMIT and an FL object XMIT. And these are additional things that need to be installed into your version in order for FOCLog to be able to be turned on. So just the fact that you're putting them on doesn't mean FOCLog is turned on, but it gives you the ability to turn it on in the future. And then the PDFs are instructions. The IBI FOCUS license keys talks about the new structure, and then the new license management talks about how to apply them, which is basically what we're just going over here. The flicense.data is a text file and should be FTP'd as ASCII to your mainframe. And the XMITs are standard IBM transmit formats, which are sequential data sets, fixed block, 80 characters, and we create them with a block size of 27,920, but the block size doesn't really matter. These should be FTP'd using binary transfer, and then once you get them to the mainframe, you will need to run the TSO receive command on them to expand them. All right, I don't see any questions yet. So this is what you would get in the zip file. This I ran for 708R, which is the oldest version we support. Notice I have the FL load.xmit, FL object, FOCExec. I pretty much have all of the files you saw previously, except for the F license. So I would transfer them over to the mainframe. So we have each of our XMIT files. And then I would have to run a receive. And I normally do this in option 6 in TSO, the command shell. And the command is receive, INDSN, and then your dataset name. And then you'll get a message, dataset, who it came from. Actually, you're going to see my ID if I actually created the transmit file, which for the licenses probably I did. And this is enter restore parameters or delete or end. So we're putting in dataset and then the dataset name. Let's see why these are so backwards. The dataset name is going to be the final exploded name of your dataset. So now we're going to have a FOCLive.load, which is going to contain the IBI CPU ID. All right, so suggested name mappings from what we have in the zip to what you would have on your mainframe would go like so. I think that's one more. So notice the only one that I didn't really change is the flicense.data. Once you get that to the mainframe, you can keep it that name. You're not receiving it into something, so you don't really need to change the name. And then you're just going to copy that and replace it with your wherever your F license currently is in errors.data. If you have JCL, there's going to be a member called JCL site. There's going to be some parameters at the top of the JCL that, let's see, let's get this this up here. All right, so when you apply the license key, make a backup of your library that has your IBI CPU ID, which is either going to be foclib.load or f.home.load. Make a backup of your library that contains F license, which would be in any of the data sets that are concatenated to errors. So primarily, it'll be in either errors.data or config.data or config.cfg, and replace the IBI CPU ID in the f home.load. Replace the F license and errors. And then if you have the JCL XMIT, you'll need to run the JCL site inside. There are set commands at the top. So ofoclib is your current production foclib dataset name. nfoclib is going to be a new foclib.load, which is only going to have some updated modules based on what you're updating through this JCL run. When you're done, if everything looks okay, you're going to then copy those modules back into your production library. So the JCL we ship doesn't update your production library directly. It creates a secondary library that you will then have to copy over. FL load LB is for if I need to incorporate the installation of the folklog information. So these are going to be the names of the files you just received. Okay. Same for the object. So all you have to do is change those sets at the top, put a job card, submit the job, and you're done. Okay, this talks about what I just said. The nfoclib, because it's new, will be deleted and recreated. So you want to make sure you're not giving it a name of something like your production focus library name. Okay. When done, copy the contents of the nfoclib to your ofoclib. Your new license is now active. So notice I didn't touch anything on folklog because that's going to come in a future session. All right, let's put these back in there. So after running the previous step, because we had the JCL site and we had the FL load lib and FL object, so your version now is capable of running folklog, but you haven't physically turned it on or activated it yet. For version 7.6.10 and higher, actually 7.6.1 and higher, folklog is already built into the product, so you don't have to, you won't have a JCL site step to run. Please refer to the folklog chapter.pdf for more information or join us at a future session. Little plug. I was going to do a demo, but we're a bit over time. So let me just see if you guys really want me to do a demo or if we can just stop it there. I'll leave it up to you guys. Any feedback? I'm going to stop the poll. Go for it. Okay. All right. So I'm still sharing, right? I gotta move things out of the way. Here we go. All right, so here I am on my mainframe. I'm starting at the point where I've transferred the files because I use right now I'm using FileZilla locally. I have my own FTP server, so I got the files to my mainframe by using the mainframe as the client. So I FTP'd to my server and then did a get on the files. If you were doing it from your PC to the server, you would do a put. Again, just remember your XMITs will be binary. If you have an F license, it will be ASCII. So I have all the files that were in that library. And just to prove it, Let me minimize. Oop, minimize. So here's the file I sent. And here are all the files that we had. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 XMIT files. And let's get that back. All right, so we go to option 6, and let's make sure I got my list of files here. So I'm going to issue the receive command. Because I'm doing it in option 6, I don't have to prefix it with TSO, but you could have done it on any ISPF panel and prefix it with TSO. But on 6, you don't have to do that. Receive in DSN, give it the dataset name. So I'm doing FOCLib, hit enter, give it my restored dataset. So I'm going to say dataset, open paren, T111112, and you can call it whatever you want, V708R. But like my recommendation was, I'm going to make this FOCLib.load. Now notice I'm not putting tick marks in my dataset name, and that's because I'm going to have it prefixed with my user ID, just like the InDSN has up here. So if you put it in ticks, then you want to fully qualify your dataset. If you leave the ticks, it's going to prefix with your user ID. Okay, it was successful. We'll do the next one. FLload.xmit. FOCLog.load lib. Okay, successful. Objects. FOCLog object. Oh. All right, let's start that one over. Okay. FOCExec. I'm not going to do FOCExec. I'm not going to do master because those are for FOCLog, and I'm not going to show that. So we have JCL is next. And master, and I already did FOCLib. So now if I go back over to my dataset list, I have the expanded libraries. So in load, I have my IBA CPU ID, which is the main controlling module for the licensing. In JCL, I have a JCL site. So now I'm going to have to add these and say, I want my old version, WebFOC P7. I never remember what version. Okay, let me go to my cheat sheet. Don't want that guy. I'm going to call this QCS WXB Focus Friday, FocLive.load. This is going to be back over there. Of course, I got rid of all that. T123422, the 708R, FocLog load lib, UCS T123422, FocLog object. If you don't give it a job card, you can submit it and it'll ask you for a character that will then, I can't do that. Do it again. B. So if I go to my job output viewer, let's cancel A, the duplicate one, because I already had something running as A. All my condition codes are 0, which is a good thing. And my final output data set was FF. And here are the modules that it created when you ran that JCL. So now you need to copy these over into your production library, copy the IBI CPU ID into your production library. And since this is prior to 7610, there is no F license. We're done. The new license is installed. So any questions on that? All right. If your license is about to expire, if you're within 30 days of expiration, you will get a message that your version of Focus is about to expire within 30 days. It doesn't tell you how many days exactly, but it does give you the expiration date. So you'll have it right there. The message will either show up in the JES log or in the sysprint at the top of the Focus job. It all depends on what version you're in. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have. Future Focus Fridays, we're going to talk more about FocLog. We're going to talk more about Focus installation itself. Focus Studio, I believe, is next month, a little preview. That's all I really have. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Keith, let's take that offline. Yeah, I'll have to research that. Okay. All right. Any questions? All right. Thanks for coming. Fill out the evaluations. Sorry we went over time. You're welcome, Pierre. I was trying to think of how to say it in French. Mr. Coleman, thanks for coming and staying. It was good seeing you on Tuesday. All right, see you guys next month.